Good afternoon, everyone. You are very welcome to today's webinar. The panel will be delighted to receive any questions that you may have. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your PC or laptop screen. If you're using any other digital device today, you may find this feature located in the More section, usually identified by 3 dots. Now, without further ado, I will hand you over to your host for today, Dr. Breda Neville. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's SunSmart for Outdoor Workers webinar. Thank you for taking the time to join us and for your interest in an issue that is increasingly important for health, safety and well-being across Ireland. Outdoor workers are exposed to high levels of UV radiation. In fact, they can often be exposed to between 2 and 3 times more UV radiation than indoor workers, putting them at increased risk of developing skin cancer. And for this reason, outdoor workers have been identified as a high-risk group in the National Skin Cancer Prevention Plan 2023 to 2026. Today's webinar aims to increase awareness of UV radiation as a risk factor for cancer, with a particular focus on organisations where people work outdoors. Sun exposure is a significant yet often underestimated occupational health risk, and it's vital that employers and workers alike are equipped with practical evidence-based guidance on how to reduce that risk. We're pleased to have an excellent panel of speakers today, and we'll have a panel discussion at the end for 15 to 20 minutes. So if you have any questions for any of our presenters, please send them in via the chat function and we'll aim to answer them then. We'll also have staff available on the chat to answer questions that you may have during the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording, along with relevant resources, will be circulated tomorrow to anyone who registered. At the end of today's webinar, we will be circulating a short survey for you to complete, and we'd really appreciate if you could take a minute to provide any feedback that you may have. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who is Dr. Roisin Rinn. So Dr. Rinn is a dermatology registrar in Tala University Hospital, who graduated with a degree in medicine from UCC and has completed a postgraduate diploma in dermatology. She has a strong interest in skin cancer prevention. She's a member of the NCCP's National Skin Cancer Prevention Plan Implementation Group and also sits on the Outdoor Workers subgroup. And today she's going to speak to us about driving for work sun safety guidance.
I'm just going to share my screen there, so hopefully you can all see that. So thank you for that introduction, Breda. I'm delighted to be presenting today on the SunSmart for Outdoor Workers Driving for Work Sun Safety Guidance. So the first thing is, why is this important? Well, skin cancer is the most common type of skin cancer in Ireland. It has 11,000 new cases of skin cancer every year, and this figure continues to rise. The vast majority of these cancers are caused by overexposure to ultraviolet radiation or UV radiation, which we mainly get from sunlight. And this means that most skin cancers are preventable. Outdoor workers can be exposed to between 2 to 3 times more UV radiation than indoor workers. And what is UV radiation? Well, UV radiation is a component of sunlight. So as we can see from this diagram here, there's different types. UVC doesn't reach the Earth's surface. It's absorbed or scattered into the atmosphere. The two other types that you may have heard of are UVB and UVA. UVB doesn't penetrate the skin as deeply as we can see here from the diagram as UVA. Simply put, it's often said that UVB causes burns and UVA ages us. But overexposure to UV can cause sunburns, skin and eye damage, including cataracts, increases our chance of getting cataracts. And it's recognized by the World Health Organization as being carcinogenic to humans, meaning that it can cause skin cancer. And the amount of UV radiation that reaches our skin is really variable. It depends on where we are in the world, the seasons, the time of the day, cloud cover, and it really raises the question of how do we know when to protect our skin? And this is when we start to talk about the UV index. And the UV index is a scale that was developed by the World Health Organization, which measures the UV level at the surface of the Earth. And it gives us an indication of when potentially our skin might be vulnerable to sun damage. It's recommended that you protect your skin when the UV index is greater or equal to 3. And we can actually check this on the Met Éireann website. So as you can see, yesterday, the UV index was between 3 and 4, indicating that we all should have been following sun protection. And then the impact of UV exposure on our skin. It's not the same for everyone. So, and one influencing factor is our skin type. We grade skin type using the Fitzpatrick skin type classification. Grade 1 is fair skin, always burns, never tans. 2 burns easily, sometimes tans. And 3 tans gradually. And this continues all the way up to type 6, which is your deeply pigmented, always tans, almost never burns category. And based off the last census, approximately 93% of the population, or the majority of the Irish population, have type 1 to 2 skin. However, interestingly, in a survey completed in 2017, 23% of people believed that they have type 3 to 4 skin. And this shows that we're overestimating how well our skin tolerates the sun, and therefore might unwittingly increase our risk of skin cancer and sun exposure. This study talks about melanin, and melanin is what gives our skin pigmentation. And when we get a tan, that's our body making more melanin. And our body does this in an attempt to protect ourselves from the potential damage of UV radiation. So when we're tanning our skin, it might be a sign that we've gotten too much sun and our body is desperately trying to protect ourselves from the impact of UV radiation. This diagram, although a little bit chaotic, captures that there are many factors that can lead to skin cancer. And occupational exposure is one of these factors, or a risk factor for increased UV radiation exposure, and that potentially could lead to skin cancer. And the reason that it's important to highlight this is because it's a mitigating factor. We could hopefully try and reduce this risk. And one question that sometimes is asked is, but I'm in a vehicle, am I not protected? And the answer to this is not really. So UVB radiation is almost completely blocked by window glass. However, UVA can pass through windows and can contribute to the cumulative exposure over time. The average percentage of front windshield UVA blockage is about 96%, which is pretty good, but the side window blockage is on average about 71%. And this is really variable, with some studies saying it can go down as far as 40%, only 40% being blocked. And that's when the window's up. But I'm sure many of us, including myself, often drive with the window down, especially on the beautiful sunny weather that we had over the weekend. And this idea of the sun penetrating through windows leading to skin damage was really effectively captured on the American Skin Cancer Foundation website, when they remind us that we've seen this in our homes, how sunlight can fade home furnishing or floorings over time. And we can see in this photograph that the wood where it was protected by the carpet is much darker than the surrounding wood that was exposed to the sunlight and UV radiation. And this visual makes it easier for us to understand how sunlight can impact your skin through windows over time. As does this image that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine of a 69-year-old gentleman who had was a truck driver for nearly 30 years. And we can clearly see what side of his body received more sun exposure. There's increased thickening of the skin and increased wrinkling on the skin on the side that was on the driver's side, demonstrating that this is an issue. And you might ask yourself, well, that's something that happens in sunnier countries, not here in Ireland. But we do see this in Ireland as well. And this is a patient I actually saw in the dermatology clinic. Again, he's a truck driver for the last 20 years, and he very kindly allowed us to share these images to raise awareness of the impact of chronic sun exposure while driving. And you can clearly see the difference between the driver side versus the left non-driver side. It's almost like looking at two different people. There's multiple dark spots on the right side of his neck alone, with more pronounced skin thickening and wrinkling than compared to the left side. And we can see this here as well from the back, where it's almost really sharply cut off here, almost in the midline, where the sun wasn't able to reach on the non-driver side. And there's numerous studies showing that skin cancer may occur more frequently on the driver's side. And more recently, this retrospective review was done of in the UK looking at non-melanoma skin cancers. And they found that there is statistically significantly more non-melanoma skin cancers on the right side or the driver's side. Now, there might be other factors at play, confounding factors, but one reason for this may be driving. So what can we do? Well, we can increase our awareness of the risks, be aware that this is a risk factor, recognize UV radiation as a physical hazard that should be protected against, where possible, by our employers under the kind of Safety, Health and Welfare Act, at Work Act of 2005, and protect ourselves and our employees. So employers should ensure that their employees can work safely, and in turn, employees have a responsibility for their own safety to follow UV protection measures outlined on the side here. We talk about slipping on your protective clothing, ensuring we're wearing sun cream, wearing a wide brimmed hat, sunglasses with UVA and B protection, and seeking shade where possible and appropriate. And the Outdoor Worker Subgroup Committee, as part of the National Skin Cancer Prevention Plan, have devised this document, and it outlines what we're talking about today, about how employers can create a workplace environment that actively supports sun protection and reduces the long-term risk of skin cancer amongst their employees. And this is available on the HSE website and healthpromotion.ie. And it discusses how employers can create this environment by integrating sun safety into workplace policies, providing staff with training on this in the same way that any other occupational hazard would be addressed, and consider protective equipment or window tinting for staff where feasible. And then for ourselves, it's important to be educated. And the Irish Skin Foundation is a fantastic resource for people. It has this document on how to protect and inspect our skin. It goes through this ABCDE criteria for assessing our moles. Our bodies love symmetry, so anytime we see asymmetry, that might be something that warrants investigation, or if a mole has irregular borders, if there's multiple colours within one mole, if it has a large diameter of more than 6 millimetres, or if a mole is evolving or changing. These are all signs that potentially you should go and see your doctor if you're concerned about a new or changing lesion. And then it goes through again what we discussed about SunSmart and remembering the 5 S's of sun safety. And what I wanted to highlight here is that sun cream is just one of many tools that we need to employ to protect our skin from the sun. And as the Irish Skin Foundation said, there's no sun cream that can provide 100% UV protection. And that's why we have to use it in conjunction with other things as well. And what I also wanted to highlight, this is a great article to read if you're looking to find out more about sun cream. But one thing I did want to highlight was the importance of making sure that our sun cream not only has a high SPF, which covers UVB protection, but also that there's a high UVA protection. And we can talk about the star rating and checking that our sun cream has that. The other point I wanted to make is that sun cream does expire, and making sure that once open that we check that our sun cream is still in date and able to use it. So this implies that after 6 months of opening, the sun cream will probably not be as effective as it once was, as it does degrade in light and expire. So important to check that before using it. And also a higher price doesn't necessarily indicate better protection. So there's no need to spend lots of money on different sun creams. And also, there is no once daily sun cream, and it's important to apply enough sun cream evenly and often. And I didn't want to leave here today scaring everybody about sun. And so, while there's definitely no definite safe dose of UV radiation, especially for people who have an increased risk of skin cancer already. There are certain benefits to sunlight. Vitamin D production. Vitamin D is made in our skin. It's really important for our bone health and our immune system. And we can get a lot of vitamin D from our food now as well through fortified milks, cheeses, butter, fish. And also sunlight plays a key role in our circadian rhythm. So melatonin is produced when it's dark outside, and this makes us tired and sends us asleep at night. And serotonin production is increased in light, and this makes us more alert and boosts our mood, which is why over the last week we were probably all feeling a bit better. But like everything, it's about finding a balance. It's about being aware of the risks and overall just being sun smart. These are my references for the presentation. I'd like to thank you all very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Dr. In. So our next speaker is Dr. Melissa Kenny. So Dr. Kenny has worked in public health in the West for many years and is currently working as a consultant in public health medicine with a special interest in health improvement. She has particular interests in child health, health needs assessment and primary prevention. And today she's going to speak to us about a sun safety awareness project with the lifeguards in Galway.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present this study, which we conducted in 2024 in the West and Northwest. I'm presenting this work on behalf of our team in the Department of Public Health, and this is a study that was undertaken with the support of a Spark Fusion research grant. So beach lifeguards face high UV radiation exposure in their work, making them a priority group for sun protection research. This study evaluated the effectiveness of wearable UV radiation sensors combined with a mobile phone application and education module in improving sun protection behaviours amongst lifeguards. And so this is where it all began. This poster was displayed in our department, and a team member had a daughter who was working as a lifeguard. And so the idea for the project came about. And of course, skin cancer prevention is an important public health issue and a national priority for the National Cancer Control Programme. And so a mixed methods observational design was used for the study, which took place in the summer of 2024, with pre and post SEPI, that's the Sun Exposure and Protection Index, surveys, wearable UV exposure monitors, and qualitative feedback. The SEPI survey is a validated tool to measure exposure attitudes and protective behaviours. And so a total of 25 beach lifeguards from Galway, Mayo and Donegal beaches were enrolled for the study. 4 people dropped out, and we got consent to use the demographic survey answers of 22 of the participants. UV readings were recorded from the 30th of July to the 8th of September in 2024, so that was a total of 40 days. And our small study team worked with 2 companies in Sweden and Norway. SunSense produced the UV sensor devices, and Replior designed the mobile phone app and data collection system. And in the picture there on the right, you can see the wearable devices and the mobile phone app. So participants used a wristband UV sensor paired with the smartphone app to monitor real-time UV exposure. And alerts were triggered at 50% of maximum safe UV dose. And this was determined by a combination of skin type and exposure data. And this signals a significant risk window, prompting immediate notification to take protective action. The team provided sun safety information at the lifeguard induction days and also invited the lifeguards to contact us if they wish to participate in the study. Although information and education can improve awareness, this does not always result in behaviour change. Results from the demographic questionnaire showed that the average age of the group was 21 years, ranging from 21 with a minimum age of 21 and a maximum age of 26 years. 15 participants were female and 7 were male. Most of the participants were college students, and 9 out of the 22 respondents to the demographic survey reported a positive family history of skin cancer. And out of those 9, 6 participants reported a family history of melanoma and 3 of non-melanoma skin cancer. And so while the family history may have prompted participation in the study, this also underscores the importance of targeted sun protection in this group. And now we move on to this very busy slide, which shows the actual UV exposure readings recorded by the UV sensors. And the line shows the percentage of maximum UV exposure readings recorded during the study period. And this was by the UV sensor devices that were worn by the participants. So if a person is exposed to more than 50% of the maximum UV dose, it means they have received over half of the dose of UV radiation considered safe or allowable for their skin type or eye type within a given time period. So exposure above 50% of the max dose suggests a significant portion of the harmful UV radiation has been absorbed, increasing these risks. And while Met Éireann doesn't actually record UV index for each area, and it's only recorded at the Valencia Observatory. Here you can see the table with the UV index readings from Valencia, which are unofficial readings, but we just wanted to compare the UV index with the readings that we got from the UV sensors. And in summary, there were 29 days out of the study when 19 out of the 20 participants were exposed to more than 50% of max UV dose. And for those of you who can recall the summer of 2024, it was cool and wet with an average temperature of between 11 and 17 to 18 degrees. It was also wetter than average until late August. And so these are the readings that we got on what was really quite a cloudy period over the summer months. And so potential UV exposure was widespread and frequent, even on cloudy days. Most participants exceeded 50% of maximum safe dose on most study days. 5 of our participants were exposed to more than 500% of maximum UV dose on at least one day. These readings were recorded on 7 different days, and a total of 8 of these readings were recorded. So these peaks were much higher than we had anticipated. 19 participants were exposed to 100% to less than 500% of max UV dose on at least one day during the study. And these levels were recorded on 26 different days, a total of 72 readings. A total of 19 participants were exposed to between 50 and 99% of the max UV dose on 24 different days with 38 of these readings. So that's really what the table there is telling you. So basically, we had high UV exposure on low sunshine days, demonstrating that cloud cover does not reliably protect against harmful UV radiation. And this slide compares the data of daily sunshine for August 2024 from Balmullet to the percentage of UV max dose. And the pink column is the Balmullet data. If you look at the 3rd of August as an example, where the sunshine value was 2 hours, still the percentage of max UV dose reached was 100 to 200%. So participants were notified on the app when they reached 50% of the max UV dose exposure. And the data showed that during the study, all 19 participants received this notification at some time or another. Notifications were sent out on 25 days during the 40 days of the study, and most of these 50% notifications went out around 1:30 p.m. The earliest, however, was at 10:30 a.m., and the latest was sent at around 8 p.m. So a key finding in our study was that 100% of the exit respondents found the app and sensor helpful in prompting sun protection action. So the exit questionnaire asked about sun protection and safety behaviour in the sun at the end of the study, along with participant feedback on the app and the sensor. All 15 respondents found the UV sensor and app helpful in reminding them to use sun protection. And the sun protection measures that they used included wearing a hat, that was 47%, reapplying sunscreen, 40%, wearing long sleeves and taking shade. And 11 of the 15 respondents to the questionnaire took more sun protection measures compared to the previous summer, and 13 participants changed their sun protection measures because of the sun safety awareness given as part of the study. So in total, 73% of participants changed their sun protection measures based on UV information provided by the app, and 87% strongly agreed with the suggestion that the UV index should be displayed at beaches for the public. That was something we were particularly interested in from a public health perspective. And while attitudes to the intervention itself were very positive, practical limitations around device connectivity and forgetting to wear the sensor reduced adherence. And these were important lessons for scaling this approach to sun awareness. And feedback from the app showed that most participants experienced connection issues and logging in issues. And I suppose this reflects the study being done along the Wild Atlantic way, really, and the very poor phone reception we have at a lot of beaches in the west and northwest. And so feedback on the sensor showed that 47% always wore the sensor, which was lower than we had hoped for. And 63% stated that the reason for not wearing the sensor was because they simply forgot. And 25% stated that connection issues also contributed to not always wearing the sensor. So technical barriers are a real world limitation of wearable health technology, and future versions of this technology should prioritize seamless connectivity and simplified login, really, to improve adherence. So in conclusion, this study demonstrates that wearable UV sensors are feasible and acceptable for changing young outdoor workers' behaviour, but technical issues need to be addressed. And real-time UVR exposure feedback from wearable sensors prompted immediate protective actions in most participants, and overexposure was common despite a high baseline knowledge. And this study highlights the level of UV exposure that can occur on a typically cloudy day in Ireland.
Thanks, Dr. Kenny. Our next speaker is Sinead Gaines, who is an Environmental Health and Safety Manager with PJ Hegarty and has 20 years of experience of working in environmental health and safety in the construction industry. And she's been involved in running health and wellbeing initiatives over the years, including on UV protection. And Sinead is going to take us through a real-life case study on sun protection for outdoor workers.
Hello, my name is Sinead Gaines. I'm an EHS manager with PJ Hegarty and Sons, and I'm just going to run through a short presentation on SunSmart initiatives that we have within the organisation and what we do around that each year. For anybody who doesn't know, PJ Hegarty are a construction company, they're broadly based in Ireland. We do some works in the UK as well. It's a family-run organisation, and it just recently, last year, celebrated its centenary year, so we're 100 years in operation. Like I said, we're broadly construction based, large projects, commercial, retail, tourism, pharmaceutical, fit out, civil engineering works. So it covers a broad spectrum of what we do. Our vision is to be the forefront of safe, sustainable and innovative construction through our centenary long legacy of delivering exceptional projects with our dynamic and diverse people. So I suppose just to talk about sun safety, it falls under, our health and well-being pillar. And just, this we have, like everything else, there has to be sort of a structure around things. So just we have a health and well-being policy there. We have a health and well-being program document, which kind of captures, everything in terms of health and well-being of staff, how we do it, what we have available staff, how we organise and run initiatives, and that kind of thing. We set out annual objectives and targets as well around health and well-being, to make sure that we're continually making progress every year in that area. And then we have an initiative calendar. There's a lot of companies that use this. The CIF construction industry have an annual calendar there. So our calendar, we look at initiatives relating to environmental sustainability separately, health and well-being, safety and DE&I. So the reason the DEI calendar is useful for us is that we had a broad area of initiatives happening across our business on different projects. Everyone was kind of, different projects were doing their own thing. You might have a strong sun initiative on one site and it wasn't so good on another site. So this was kind of brought in to make sure we know what we're doing in terms of initiatives. We're putting a broad campaign around our initiatives, which builds consistency and better momentum and a higher level of impact. So some things our initiative calendar does for us. It moves well-being from a vague intention into action. It shows commitment to our staff and to our supply chain around health and well-being, and that it's involved in our thinking. It's not an afterthought. It gives a better structure instead of random one-off events or initiatives. The calendar, we make sure that it aligns with national and international campaigns or CIF campaigns. So it gives us momentum. It also, there's a lot of information out there on national campaigns that are being run, and just, why wouldn't you leverage off what they're doing and utilize the information that they're putting out there as well to give it a higher impact. And just means consistency in health and well-being and our initiatives, and just we have a better impact over time, and also bringing about that cultural shift or cultural change or cultural improvement within an organisation as well. So just around sun safety or SunSmart, I suppose in 2017 was really when we recognised that we need to do more around SunSmart and skin cancer awareness. So just, what broadly identifying what the gaps are. The first massive gap there was just awareness, and just the provision of sunscreen on our construction sites, and then just building momentum from there. So I suppose our journey, so 2018 was really just the sunscreen dispensers. It's so simple, but you'd be surprised. Before that, we were buying bottles of sunscreen and we had them in offices. No one would come in to ask for it. Then we put them in canteens, but they were just being robbed. So the dispensers were great. We could put them throughout site, and in areas, and we noticed that our procurement of sunscreen increased significantly when we had these dispensers across our sites. And again, then the UV index board on that just meant that you could give workers a gauge day on day based on the Met Air and weather forecast, what kind of index we were in terms of sun damage or intensity on that day. We were involved with the CIF Sun Awareness campaign with RTE Morning Ireland as well. Then, so jumping on to 2019, Healthy Ireland, released a skin cancer prevention program from 2019 to 2022. So it was great. There was action areas within that program, and outdoor workers was one of those action areas. And again, we just leveraged off their action area within that and what they were doing, and used that. We also developed sun safety posters. We ran a poster campaign in line with, the distribution or of the sunscreen, and then toolbox talks. Jumping to 2021 then, so 2020 was COVID year, so a lot of sites were shut down sort of April and May time. So 21 really was when we picked it up again. There was a webinar, I think it was held by the HSE that we attended. I was just trying to get, I suppose, ideas on what others are doing out there and what more can we do and that kind of thing. But there was a doctor in attendance at that webinar, Dr. Blahin. She did give a really good presentation on that, and that really was the next level for us. We're like, right, so the skin cancer aspect, checking yourself, making sure you go to a GP if you have any concerns, what to look for, all that kind of thing. So that kind of brought us into that area. We invited her to our workplace, and she did a webinar with her workers, which was excellent. They found it very beneficial. We've recorded it. We use it on a regular basis, every other year now. And out of that, we had 3 of our staff members who went and got checked and got early diagnosis for skin cancer. And then another person who had a family member on the back of that webinar who had concerns in an area and sent them for a checkup and got early diagnosis. So huge benefits from that as well around the skin cancer aspect of it. Then we also engage with the Irish Skin Foundation. They have a huge amount of resources available that you can use. We contacted them. They sent us out leaflets that we could distribute on site, posters. There's lots of information on their website as well. They update that quite regularly. We put it out there around the Skin Cancer Foundation in general. People who have skin conditions weren't aware of the Skin Foundation and the resources they have and the free information, guidance and knowledge that's available to them. So that's been hugely beneficial. Even people who have kids with skin conditions weren't aware that this was available to them as well. So lots of information there, lots of information on the HSE website as well, and the Irish Cancer Society as well. So just utilising what's there and what's available. You don't have to go reinventing the wheel, so to speak. 2022 we pushed on. We added water to a campaign, so hydration was the big thing. We had a number of incidents on a site the same day, around 2:30 in the afternoon, and it was the first sort of day where there was a heat wave, and it was the first day of heat. And Ireland, it goes from winter to summer in a day. So we noticed that there was a lot of sort of incidents in this day, and we realized that hydration and heat and weather change was a big part of that. So we added hydration to our campaign, the importance of hydration, and your well-being and your mental state, and how that can impact safety. So the use of water stations distributed around the site, making sure that they're kept in supply during the summer and things like that, came into it. Also, the sun exposure for outdoor workers risk assessment. So we have a risk assessment there. A lot of companies would have a risk assessment that's sitting there in a file and not being properly utilised. So what we've done is we get each project to do a risk assessment, because each project was different in terms of their needs for control measures for sun protection. It just depended on the phase that site was in at that time. Like for example, we had roofers at a time where there was a heat wave, and they are one of the key workers where they're a high risk. They not only have the sun coming down, they have the sun reflecting back up as well. So that kind of thing, risk assessments, making them site specific, and then now we have a small changes, big difference campaign as well that came into it. Getting involved in national campaigns and supporting those where we could. So we got involved with the CIF and the HSA as well. So that's kind of where our campaign is at the minute. SunSmart, skin cancer awareness and hydration, they're the things we cover. Posters, risk assessments, toolbox talks, our sunscreen, UV index boards, some PPE, clothing, cover, glasses, making sure crane drivers, have the correct eye protection, roofers, things like that, outdoor workers, webinars, guest speakers, and getting involved in campaigns throughout the industry where you can. Can we do better? We can always do better. How, I suppose, being involved, what I would like to see, some type of skin screening available. It's something we just need to create awareness around, a conversation piece. Is it something that we could introduce through the Construction Workers Health Trust? Just, have a conversation about skin cancer and outdoor workers, because it is predominant in that area. So advice on skin checks, how to do that, things to look out for, that kind of thing. So just that more one-to-one. And then just easier access to specialists. So just over the years, what we found is people who did have concerns, the first point of protocol is always the GP, but then from the GP getting a reference letter and finding a specialist and who's the right specialist to use, and just the wait time as well for that. So just making it easier, more accessible as well. But the Irish Skin Foundation are great in giving you guidance and all of that as well. So that's kind of the feedback we've got. So there is lots we can do to improve and do better. So that's kind of me and Hegarty's and what we do at Hegarty's. And if you found anything useful, it's about keeping it simple. It's about building momentum each year. If you're starting out or you want to do something, you don't have to do all at once. You can't eat the whole cake in one bite. So, take it step by step and build on it and get momentum. So that's kind of it. I hope you found it helpful. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good day.
Thanks, Sinead. So our final speaker today is Dr. Barbara McGrogan. Dr. McGrogan has been a medical scientist at the HC's National Cancer Control Programme since 2009. She's a member of the National Skin Cancer Prevention Plan Implementation Group, and she's also a member of the Outdoor Workers subgroup. Other areas of work include cancer genetics, education, and professional development. And Dr. McGrogan is now going to give us an overview of resources and supports available for outdoor workers.
Barbara, if you could just unmute yourself, please, and thank you.
There we go.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Breda, for the introduction. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you there, Barbara.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jean. Just to say, I'll just go on to the first slide there.
Barbara, apologies. We can't see your slides at the moment. So if you just try and share them there again for us, please. And if not, I'll be able to support you from this side.
Sure. I'm sorry. They're gone now. Would you mind sharing them?
Of course, that's no problem. So Barbara, what you just need to do is when you want to go to the next slide, just say next slide and I'll move it on for you.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Breda, for the introduction. I'll just go on to the next slide. Thanks, Jean. So, thank you. The National Skin Cancer Prevention Plan 2023 to 2026 has identified outdoor workers as a key high-risk group for skin cancer. And they have a number of actions that I can discuss as we go through the slides. So we go to the next slide now. Okay, so as previous speakers have said, skin cancer is the most common cancer in Ireland. There are over 11,000 skin cancers diagnosed, and the main types of skin cancer are melanoma, which is the most deadliest form of skin cancer, and then non-melanoma skin cancers, which are the most common forms of skin cancer. And looking at the figures there, more men than women, more males than females are diagnosed with skin cancer, and more males than females die from skin cancer. And recent CSO figures have shown that 1 in 4 skin cancer deaths are in outdoor worker group. So that's why outdoor workers are a key group that we need to get the message to in terms of sun protection. Thanks, Jean. The next slide. So in terms of the skin cancer prevention plan, so what it does is it increases awareness about skin cancer prevention. We hope to improve adoption of skin cancer preventative behaviours, as discussed, like the 5 S's. We monitor, change and evaluate plan every year. We do this through education, like the events like this, public awareness and behaviour change campaigns like the SunSmart campaign that's run every year, environmental measures like providing shading in outdoor places, and also policy change and introduction of policies, say, for example, in outdoor workers where, policy can be introduced. So the different target groups are children, adolescents and young people, outdoor workers, sports, recreation, tourism, and sunbed users. Thanks, Jean. So in the skin cancer prevention plan, as was mentioned previously, outdoor workers are exposed to up to 2 to 3 times more UV radiation than indoor workers. So that really puts outdoor workers at increased risk of skin cancer. So how employers can help is to adopt comprehensive approaches to occupational sun protection for their employees. And this can be done through, as you can see in the actions there, raising awareness about UV protection and skin cancer prevention, providing resources like we do, also incorporating skin cancer prevention messages and behaviour into healthy workplace initiatives. And then we also continue to partner with relevant stakeholders to develop skin cancer prevention best practice in the workplace. Thanks, Jean. The next slide. So as previously mentioned, under the Safety, Health and Welfare at Work Act 2005, employers must identify hazards in their workplace, assess the risk and eliminate or reduce and control the measures. So in this case, it's in relation to UV radiation. So it's very important for employers to look after their employees. Thanks, Jean. So research was undertaken by researchers in UCD, and they looked at the literature in terms of outdoor workers and UV. So they found that overall, those who spend 4 or more hours outdoors daily have a higher skin cancer risk. And also they found that outdoor workers were more likely to comply with sun safety practices. For example, applying sunscreen, wearing a hat, if they feel their employer and colleagues encourage it. However, workplace culture and peer influence may prove more difficult to change. So it's very important to have this sun protection work culture, and also to provide peer influence and influence people to wear the sunscreen and put on the hats and cover up as well. So really, it's important for organisations to strategically address skin cancer prevention through training and education, providing protection control measures like sunglasses, protective clothing and sunscreen, monitoring activity, and then producing policy as well. Thanks. And again, we just have it here in a diagrammatic form. So in terms of education approaches,
apologies, we just seem to have lost Barbara there for a moment. Let's see if she can come back on with us. Frida, I've just added you there to the screen while we just wait for Barbara's connection to come back.
Say provide talk.
Oh, we have Barbara, apologies, we lost you there for a moment. No, that's okay. If you wish, Barbara, it may be worthwhile just turning your camera off, just because the internet is dipping in and out a little, and at least we might be able to keep you.
Grand, okay.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks, Jean. Just an overall look at the research. Basically, there's educational approaches, talks, posters, brochures. There's activities designed to influence knowledge, attitude, and behaviours of the workers. So, for example, role modelling. So managers and health and safety officers, wearing the wide-brimmed hats and putting on the, protection clothing and wearing the sunscreen. Also doing UV risk assessments and supplying sun protection policies are very important practices to promote sun protection. And environmental approaches like providing sunscreen and shade are important. Thanks. So overall, really, you need to get buy-in from the senior management and health safety team, and have workplace champions are critical facilitators in workplace change. Ensure that managers and supervisors act as positive role models. Also develop your own skin cancer prevention framework, and I'll show you there are resources that we have produced to do this. So include sun protection advice as part of health and safety programs or induction programs for new employees. And then remind employees regularly about the dangers of sun's UV rays when working outdoors, and to check their skin regularly. Display posters and provide leaflets, and also do a risk assessment and UV protection policies. This will all help sun protection measures in the companies. Now, another thing that we provide is a SunSmart Toolbox talk, and it provides basic information for outdoor workers about their health risks from UV exposure and the importance of protecting the skin and eyes from UV radiation, and includes an educational video, worksheet, posters, and frequently asked questions. And maybe the health and safety officers within companies would facilitate this for employees. Thanks, Dean. Just in terms of risk assessment tools that we have produced, there is a group risk assessment tool and also a personal risk assessment tool. So basically, they're designed to see where the greatest risk of UV radiation is in your workplace, who is at greatest risk from UV exposure, what are the safety control measures that are currently in place, and what can you do to actually improve sun safety in your organization. And these are all the resources that are available on the Healthy Workplace website. And it includes an audit tool to see what you're doing in terms of sun protection. There's a framework, there is a terms of reference sample, there's a survey that you can look at the knowledge, attitude, and behaviors of your employees. And the next. And also there is a checklist for UV protection policy, and then a sample UV protection policy template. So all these are available on the Healthy Workplace website, and would be great to include in your campaigns for sun safety. We also have an annual SunSmart campaign, as I previously said, that runs from April to September, and the HSE National Cancer Control Programme and Healthy Ireland are planning a campaign to increase awareness of the steps you can take to protect your skin from the sun and reduce your risks from skin cancer in Ireland. And also to receive a partner pack, a SunSmart partner pack, you just have to email prevention@cancercontrol.ie. And also there are downloadable printable resources available on healthpromotion.ie, and you can see them there, all the posters that you could use in your company. And just to say, if there's any organisations out there that want to know more information, to contact us on prevention@cancercontrol.ie. And, you know, it was great to hear about Sinead working with PJ Hegarty and all the initiatives that are being done on skin cancer prevention and raising awareness about the risk from UV. So it's really good to see that being done. So it'd be nice to get more people involved in this work. And just to highlight that we have within the HSE National Cancer Control Programme, Maria McHenry is the lead person, and she's a cancer prevention officer. And then we have 5 other senior health promotion and improvement officers around the country that people can get in contact with if they need support in this work. And then also we have general information on SunSmart available on the HSE website. And we also have an NCCP YouTube channel that people can access webinar recordings, patient stories, and educational videos. And just lastly, I just want to acknowledge, I suppose, the Skin Cancer Prevention Implementation Group, particularly the NCCP and Healthy Ireland, the Irish Cancer Society, Mary Keating Foundation, the Irish Skin Foundation, and Breakthrough Cancer Research, and the Melanoma Trust, and also our other partners, you know, including the HSA, Met-Éireann, CIF, Teagasc, An Post, Irish Rail. So there's a lot of different organisations that we work with It's quite a big list, but we want to thank everybody involved in this work. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Barbara. So now I invite all of our panelists to come back on for the panel discussion. So the first question that I have here is a question that came in for Roisin. So what is the likelihood of developing cancer in people in their 30s and 40s, and what measures can be taken to prevent it?
So thank you very much, Rita, for that question. I suppose we know that the incidence of skin cancer increases as we get older, and the average age to get a skin cancer is probably going to be in our 60s. Melanoma, there's approximately 1,200 new cases of melanoma in Ireland every year, and approximately 22% of those are under 50. Non-melanoma skin cancers are much more common, get approximately 10,000 new cases in Ireland every year, of which approximately 14% are less than 50 years old. There's lots of factors to take into consideration: people's genetics, their skin type, environmental factors like their occupational driving risk. But I suppose we also know that sunbeds play a key role in skin cancer risk. And if you're using a sunbed, even if you just use a sunbed once, it can increase your risk of developing a melanoma goes up by 30%, and your risk of developing a non-melanoma skin cancer goes up by 40%. So really it's about being aware of the risks and staying sun safe, knowing what the UV index is, and following the 5 S's as outlined by SunSmart. And that's the best way to protect your skin.
Thanks very much, Roisin. And yeah, definitely worth highlighting the sunbed risk there in addition to the work or the risk from being outdoors. I have a question for Melissa. What is the short-term and long-term impact of being exposed to high levels of UV radiation each year?
Again, I suppose our study doesn't actually, answer that, but I suppose the major risk, as Roisin has already said, is in the development of skin cancer, both melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancer.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks.
I have a question for Sinead. So when you made sunscreen available for staff, was there any feedback on the type of sunscreen that was available?
Yeah, so we engaged with Dr. Blaheen at the time, and she gave us recommendations on sunscreen, but we always went for the factor 50. And then just what Roisin spoke about earlier, just the UVA and the UVB. So just making sure. So we had a doctor recommendation for the sunscreen that we used on site.
Thanks, Sinead. A question for Barbara. So is there outreach work into building sites? I think maybe we've lost Barbara there. I might come back to Barbara there in a minute.
I've come back here now.
You there,
Yeah.
Barbara? Sorry, I don't know if you heard the question, did you?
No, sorry.
Okay, so the question was, is there outreach work into building sites?
I suppose there is the toolbox talks that there's a facilitator pack where someone, say a health and safety manager in the workplace, can use it to train the staff. And the senior health promotion and improvement officers could be available, I suppose, if they had capacity, maybe online or in person, within the region where they're based. And if they're not available, then the person could contact, or the company could contact prevention@cancercontrol.ie for more information.
Great, thanks, Barbara. Another question for Roisin. So, for staff who spent years working outdoors before such campaigns and greater awareness, are there any visual clues or precautions or things that people should watch out for example, or checkups they should do, for example, undertaking mole mapping?
Yeah, so I think the main thing that I would recommend everyone to do is to get to know their skin, be familiar with their skin, what it looks like, so that if there is a change, you'd be able to spot it. Sometimes we recommend that people take baseline photographs of their skin if they're particularly worried about something, and they can monitor to see if it's changing. The main things to, be aware of is that for non-melanoma skin cancers, they might look like pink red bumps on the skin. Sometimes they can be scaly, sometimes they can be painful, but they don't go away. And the other for melanoma, then it's looking at that A, B, C, D, E criteria that I mentioned earlier, and as well as something called the ugly duckling sign. So we often talk about this in dermatology, and that's when something stands out on your skin as being very different to the rest. And I think if you have any concerns, the main thing is to always get it checked. Go to your GP, get referred to a dermatologist to have it reviewed. I think is the number one message. Don't sit on something. Get it checked.
Thanks, Roisin. So if in doubt, go to your GP and get it checked out. Melissa, I have another question for you. If workplaces don't have access to UV sensors, would sharing the UV index data be a good alternative to raise awareness for you of UV levels among staff?
Yeah, I suppose the UV sensors that we used in our study are really for research, and I think in the long term, wearable devices will become more mainstream. But in the absence of that, I think it's important for everyone to be aware of the UV index. In our study, I suppose the lifeguards felt that it'd be good if it was displayed. So for outdoor workers, it may well be a good idea to display the UV index and everyone to be aware that if it's 3 or greater, they should be wearing sunscreen. And we definitely seem to get up to 3 most of the time from what we could see in our study. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Melissa. Um, so another question for Sinead. What did you do to get buy-in from staff to take sun protection seriously in the workplace?
I think the game changer for us was the webinars, so getting in a guest speaker. So Dr. Blaheen getting her in, and she went through it in detail. Just the effects and the repercussions and just the exposure outdoor workers have. So that understanding and awareness is really what transitioned us from getting the workers into buy-in in their skin, as well as that engaging with the Skin Foundation and just making that available. So, people, dermatitis, psoriasis, anything like that. There's a lot of people out there with skin conditions that have questions, and just prompting them towards that was hugely helpful for them, and they were very grateful around it. So, just giving them sort of signposting on where they can go and what they can do, and if they had any concerns. We had workers who would start coming into the office and start showing us things. They'd be questioning, Roisin said, get to know your skin. So there was a lot of that going on. And we had workers coming in starting to question things that they had on their skin. Now, we're not doctors, but like we would always say, well, if you have concerns in any way, get it checked out. But it was sort of the things that didn't look so abnormal that were more sinister. So if there's anything, we would always say, don't sit on it, get it checked out. We had people like that with stuff that was a bit scaly and just looked maybe a little bit like dry skin. And then when they went, got it out, came back to us and said, yeah, there's something more sinister there and we have to get it off, which was great because it was early detection, but we were just kind of shocked by the whole getting to know your skin and what people were finding, and they were coming back to us then just with the feedback in general, which was, we need to do a lot more in this area. So it really was just awareness was the game changer from us.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's really positive though to see those levels of, to see it in action, isn't it, in your workplace? Um, so I have another question for Barbara here. Where should an outdoor worker organisation start if they want to do more on sun protection for their staff?
Yeah, well, I suppose to get the resources, that's the first thing. So we have the framework, the Skin Cancer Prevention Framework. We have an audit tool to see what they're doing and what needs to be done in terms of sun protection. I would suggest setting up a small working group, maybe health and safety officers, HR, health and wellbeing managers, and the staff. And then from that, coming up with some sort of an action plan. There is a terms of reference, a draft terms of reference there. There's a survey that you can survey your employees. There's the audit tool and the risk assessment tools. So focus on things like patient stories, have posters, PPE, provide PPE, which is important, shading, and also reorganizing maybe outdoor activities to when UV isn't strongest. That's an important thing in terms of administrative activity that could be done, and then check the UV index, plan ahead for the day. So, and get buy-in from managers and policy development. So all the information is available on the website, and also you can contact prevention@cancercontrol.ie for more information.
Great, thanks, Barbara. Another question has just come in for Sinead. How can smaller contractors take steps to prevent sun cancer and raise awareness?
I think like utilize the information that's there. So Barbara mentioned that there's lots of information online. So we use the packs. There was like a checklist kit there that we used, which kind of identified sort of the gaps, what we're doing, what we can do, what we kind of need to do better. Start with the PPE, which is the sunscreen. And then the engagement piece is basically getting them to use it, which is your skin cancer awareness program, which is just toolbox talks, making the guys aware, doing skin checks with them. It's something simple, just checking arms and stuff like that. Do you have a mole? Do you check your mole? What does it look like? We've people now who go for their own sort of skin checks annually, but even that, taking a picture, if you have a concern, take a picture and give it a couple of months, see if there's changes, if there's something there that you're concerned about. So all of that, and then you got more buy-in from people actually using the dispensers. But the sunscreen, giving them that sunscreen, educating them about the UV index and their exposure, the risks and what that risks look like, so that you have something visibly tangible, the moles and what to look for, what's abnormal. That's really just where you start, and you can build momentum from there, is what I would advise.
Thanks, Sinead. Excuse me. So there's just another question for Barbara. Um, Apologies. Are we behind other countries in terms of workplace sun safety programs because of the perception that we don't get proper summers?
I don't believe we are. Like originally we looked at evidence from Canada, and Canada are very well ahead, and of course Australia. So we would be very much on a par in terms of the fact that we have skin cancer prevention plans from 2019 to now, and we'll be producing another one, hopefully. And where outdoor workers have been specifically, listed as a key high risk priority group. And the fact that, 1 in 4 deaths from skin cancer have been found to be in outdoor workers. So it's such an important area that we have to, work on, and we're doing that, with all the different organizations and groups. Yeah, so.
That's great. Thanks, Barbara. So I think in the interest of time, we need to draw today's webinar to a close. I just want to say thanks again to all of our speakers and to everyone who joined us today. And as I said earlier, the recording and relevant resources will be circulated tomorrow. And just a quick reminder to complete the post-webinar survey, as your feedback is really valuable to us. Thank you.